Hello, everyone. I just wanted to just briefly comment on these questions that I asked you for last week's reading, the shot in Facebook. After having looked at a range of responses, as I said, I don't have a lot of experience in social media, and one of the things that I suspect often about the way that people talk about social media is that they might condemn it too thoroughly, or they might blame things on social media that aren't social media's fault. Those are just suspicions because again, I don't have the practical experience with it to really be authoritative with it. But so that was really the inspiration for these questions, really a curiosity, more asking people who I know are younger than me and are more technically tuned in than me, probably, what this is really like. So the first question: do you think that the experience of the subject of shot in Facebook reflects the general experience of its users? That is, the very interesting radio, basically, profile of somebody who had used Facebook and had stopped using Facebook for reasons that she outlines, and really whether that experience was the general experience. Now, one person said, "Well, I don't know what the general experience. What would that be? The general experience? I mean, they only have their own experience." But most people tended to think that that experience was not unique. That is, experience of the woman in shot in Facebook was not a unique experience. That the pressure to curate your life, to edit the presentation of your life as it appears on social media, to reflect positively and not just to promote yourself, but kind of, it seemed to me, obey the rules of Facebook. That is that experiences in our lives that are ambivalent and they're not easily categorized in some safe or acceptable way tend to get pushed out, and what we tend to produce is a phony version of our lives that distorts them and also distorts the way we live. That was pretty much held up. That is, that idea that these social media has these tendencies. So people generally thought that the experience of shot in Facebook was fairly representative of the users of social media. Number two is really a genuine question that I have. Is FOMO a real thing? Again, I am skeptical of things that I read about in the media, like FOMO. Is that a real thing? I mean, obviously, thoughts that other people might be having a better time than us, and that by making the choices that we do, that we're missing out on things. That's just a natural thought that anybody would have in their lives. But whether it's become a genuine phenomenon through social media, that is a more pervasive or common experience because of social media, that's the question I had. And people, again, generally speaking, in the study question response, said, yes, it is a real thing. It may be something that is correlated to age. That is, and that wouldn't surprise me. When we're young, of course, I think, have a stronger notion of these things, a stronger compulsion to join up and to, I don't know, sit with the cool kids in the cool part of the cafeteria. I don't know. But that doesn't surprise me either. That is, as you grow older, part of maturing is not feeling like you have to be doing whatever the in thing is or whatever the current thing is. But so is FOMO a real thing? People pretty much said yes, it is a real thing, and it's a bothersome thing. Number three, having listened to and read this week's materials, do you think someone should stand up and defend social media? Well, that, again, is coming from my own suspicion that we tend to scapegoat certain entities for our problems, which is, I don't know if it's true in the case of social media or not, but And most people said, no one needs to defend social media. They're doing fine. Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and whatever else there is. They're doing fine. No one needs to defend them. What we need to do is to hold them responsible when they make the kind of transgressions that we studied earlier in the semester, let's say, with regard to Facebook. But, many people said, well, yeah, I mean, social media can be used in positive ways, but the problem is that it becomes a compulsion and it has all these negative effects. Um, I guess I wrote this question and I put this class together basically before the last move that Facebook made when it decided to change its name to Meta. And having read the responses on the discussion board and having read range of study question responses, I suspected that the reason that they changed their name is because the name Facebook is basically mud. That is, the name Facebook is so associated with such a range of negative things that changing the company's name to Meta was just a way of trying to distance itself from its own bad reputation. Having read your responses, I think I believe that that's absolutely true now. That is that social media and especially Facebook, people hate it. I mean, people use it. They have this ambivalent relationship with it. But generally speaking, they hate it. And Facebook is the most, I don't know if it's fair to say, the most prominent or common object of scorn. But I think most people really have a very negative association. Facebook just brings with it negative connotations. And they go back to the beginning of the company, I guess. That Zuckerberg created in Harvard, which was sexist, misogynist. I think that he fairly quickly got away from that, but it was pretty disgusting. And maybe Facebook has always been disgusting. I don't know. In certain ways. So I think that I'm convinced now that the change to supposedly we're supposed to call it Meta now, is just done to get away from that terrible reputation that Facebook has. Even among its users, it has a terrible reputation. And the ambivalence that my students have felt about their social media use goes back a number of years. I mean, this is not something new. For years, I have detected that students they feel constrained. They feel imprisoned almost by social media, where they feel like they have to stay on it to be a person. That is to cut off your social media in some way, to become a hermit, which is maybe what some people are doing. Um, to avoid some of the negative effects.